All right. So the cost of living in Boston, Massachusetts, let's get into it because, everybody thinks of like Red Sox, lobsters, the Freedom Trail, people being wicked smart, Goodwill Hunting, all of these things when they think of Boston. But do they think Boston's affordable? Let's be honest. The big answer, no surprise, no shock. No, it's one of the worst. Is it affordable? Not at all. You're going to be crying. It's going to be brutal. You're not going to like it. Now, let me ask you, is this something that you need to know? Yes. Is this information that you're looking for? I'm guessing because you're watching the video, you are. So keep watching. Let's get into it. Because if you're looking to know all about the cost of living here in Boston, Massachusetts, that's what we're getting into. So if you're relocating to Boston, what's up, everybody? This is Joe with the Turco Group right here in Boston, Massachusetts. If this is your first time in this channel and you want to know everything about working, eating, sleeping, living, playing, and just how expensive the cost of living is here, make sure you tap that subscribe button, click that little bell so that you're notified every time we do a new video. Honestly, we get so many phone calls, texts, emails every day from people who are relocating here, and we absolutely love it. If you're thinking about moving anywhere in the area, relocating, or coming here to stay, make sure you give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even send Paul Revere. Days, nights, weekends, however you want to get a hold of us, we've got your back when moving to Boston. Okay, so you're here, you made it. You are watching this video because you want to know what the cost of living is like here in Boston. And let me just rip off the Band-Aid. You're going to be in for some sticker shock on most things. So if you're looking at, what it's going to be like to have those utility bills, what your daily cost of living is going to be like, what your transportation costs are going to be, and things like, oh, do you own a car? Well, there's going to be parking costs, parking. Oh my God, you have to pay for parking. I know, it's crazy. And then groceries. And then, if you're in a condo, homeowners associations, there's so many different things that are involved around living in Boston that people don't know about, that aren't always expenses in other places. And that's what we're going to get into right now. So let's get started and, stay with me right through to the end, because I have some important information then on how you can save on some of these huge cost of livings and a couple hacks that you might want to know. Okay, so the average cost of living in Boston for a single one person is just under $2,900 a month. That is like huge. It puts us squarely in the top 1% of the most expensive cities in the world, not just the United States, but the entire world. And it puts us at number 26, I think, for the most expensive city in the US out of over 2,200 cities. And we have the 31st most expensive in the world out of over 9,300 cities that were looked at. So you got to think about that. Out of almost 10,000 cities, you're looking at one that's in not just the top 100, not just the top 50, but realistically the top 30 in the entire world. That's a big deal. But here's the thing. Reports will vary slightly, with the cost of living in Boston generally falling somewhere between 48 and 62% higher than the national average for the United States. That number, it doesn't really matter. What matters is there is no denying in any way, shape, or form that Boston is an incredibly expensive city. All right, so I'm in real estate. So obviously one of the biggest things that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis, and why people like you who are watching this video and subscribing to the channel are reaching out days, nights, weekends, whenever we got your back, is because of the amazingly high inflated costs of housing, both for renting and purchasing here in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, let's be honest, the housing market in Boston, as can be expected, is much higher than the national average. How much so? 300%. The median home price in Boston is $720,000 now in 2022. And it's expected to, again, continue to rise in the next number of years. Now, the median monthly rent isn't much more affordable because right now it's right solidly at, $2,250. And that's just your median. There are much more expensive places. And forget about it if you have pets. It's just going to be an additional expense that gets factored in. So when you compare this to the national, monthly salary that someone's making here, which is a little over $5,000 post taxes, this means that a large portion of your paycheck is going to be going towards those living expenses. And, it's one of those things that you have to keep in mind when you're moving here or thinking about moving here, because again, that sticker shock, you're gonna have to get over it real fast if you're going to get into this competitive market. Now, inside your home, the cost of living in Boston it's not gonna get better. The average utility bill is about 17% higher than the national average. So if you look at where your number is for your monthly utilities, and then you add about another 17 to 20%, that's where you're going to be sitting at. So when you're doing your budget for moving, you have to take this into consideration. This is, in part due to Boston's really cold and frigid winters. Those heating bills are going to go up, and it's going to be significant spending on your energy bills. Now, how do we get energy here? We have a couple different ways that are not always common in other parts of the country. We are predominantly either a gas utility or an oil delivery utility. There is a very little bit of electric heating and utilities that are focused around it, but predominantly, especially for heating, you're going to be seeing gas and oil, and these are not things to be scared of. But let's get into some of the more just out there cost of living that maybe you weren't going to expect when moving to Boston. Okay, so like anything else, there's always going to be, when in a major city like here in Boston, an additional expense. So what I'd love for you to do is drop a comment below on what your price is on some of these items compared to Boston. Is it higher? Is it lower? Is it the same? And tell me which item it is. Because right now, if you're moving or living in Boston, your food costs will be keeping up with the rest of the expenses, and they're much higher than the national average. For one person, the average monthly food bill is, over $375, which is, about 25% higher than the national average. Now, luckily, we don't have state or city tax on groceries, so you're not having to pay taxes on stuff like that. But to give you kind of an idea, the cost of a gallon of milk is around $3.51. A loaf of bread is about $2.82. A dozen eggs is, if you're lucky, $2.52. A pound of bananas is going to cost about 80 cents per. And then a pound of chicken right now is right at about $5.50. And if you want bottled water, because who doesn't, right? It's going to be about $2.50 for, a little more than a liter of water. So you're going to have all of these different costs. And here's the big thing, guys, because at the end of the day, that's just for like your in-home groceries and stuff like that. If you decide to like go out and eat, the price of your meal is going to depend obviously on the restaurant you choose. But for one person, your meals could be anywhere from, $15 to $50. But like, obviously any size city, Boston has, many super high-end and luxury eateries. Foodies love it. So it's really easy to drop like $500 or $600 on a dinner. So one thing to keep in mind though, that Boston does charge a sales tax on restaurants. So, as of March in 2021, the tax on restaurant meals is $6.25 of that bill. So again, going back to that cost of living here in Boston, it is going to be significant. And after housing, your food cost is probably going to be one of your biggest bills. A lot of places don't have this all packed together, and you don't always think about it when you're coming from a different area, but transportation and, the cost of parking here in Boston is very different than other parts of the country. And getting around Boston is another big expense because our transportation costs are about 32% higher than the national average prices. And, that takes into account things like gas, car insurance, maintenance, mass transit. So like if you're taking the T or, that's what we call the train, it's going to have additional costs. And parking here is expensive. You're going to, depending on the type of situation and where, you're going to pay anywhere from, $150 to $400 a month for a parking spot, either on the street or on the garage. And yes, people even sell parking spots here in Boston. I've sold many and they cost over $300,000. Think about that. That's just for a parking spot. In other parts of the country, that is what it costs for an entire home. So, of course, these costs are going to vary. And it's going to be like one of those things where, is it in the city? Are you in the Back Bay? Are you in the South End? Are you in the North End? Did you go out to Cambridge? Are you in Brookline? Whereabouts are you? Are you out in the suburbs? All these things, they're going to make a big impact. Obviously, the closer you are to downtown and the city of Boston, the more expensive it's going to be. But in many neighborhoods in Boston, you're going to, also need to factor in that fee and figure out, is that going to be what you want? Now, let me know in the comments, what you would expect to pay if you were going to be moving here, just to have your car parked somewhere. Because that's the thing, is if you're looking in a specific neighborhood or town or area, I want to help you out and let you know, okay, this is what it will be in that area. And here's where you're getting scammed. And here's where you're getting a great deal, because the cost of living here is no joke. And I'm here to help. A little bit of a side thing, but it plays right into our talk about the cost of living and what everything is really going to be costing you. Boston has some of the best healthcare, not just in the United States, but in the world. We have a significant amount of amazing hospitals, as well as industries like pharmaceuticals and education that feed into our healthcare system here in the city, making it one of the biggest destinations for people that need to get well. But here's the thing, if you're just living here day to day, and you're going to want to stay healthy, because healthcare costs here, because it is so good, are in general about 36% higher than the national average. A doctor's visit is usually around $150. Now, obviously, we're not talking about people's copays or things like that, but just a general doctor's visit. A general dentist visit is going to be about $130. Optometrist, $145. Your prescription medication, closer to $600. And then, because our pets are our family, and everybody knows how much I love dogs and cats and just our furry little friends, a veterinary visit on average is going to be about $70. And that's something that you have to keep in mind, because the cost of living in Boston is definitely on the higher end. But is it worth it? I mean, if you're dreaming of walking through all of the charm and amazingness, if you're like a sports fanatic, if you have all of these great things that Boston's going to give you, then yeah, I mean, it is. It's a place where we do have great education. We do have great healthcare. We have great transportation access. We can get over to Europe for a 4-day weekend. There's nothing like that type of closeness, especially if you're coming from overseas. And then the other thing is, let's be honest, like anything in life, you get what you pay for. This is a city among cities. It is one of the oldest in our nation. There's character, there's history, there is so much to it. And that's why, in my opinion, and why I came back here after living overseas, is it's totally worth it. The cost of living, I can't even describe. It can be painful at first, but once you rip the Band-Aid off, it's that much easier. And the other thing to think about, especially from like a housing and real estate perspective, is the fact that you get better appreciation, bigger gains. There's more demand. You never have to wait to sell a home. Now, there's a lot of things that go into it, but these are the great things about the cost of living here. Because let's be honest, it's not just a pro or a con, it's a reality. But that reality means that you can put yourself in a great position to get more in the future. All right, so because we're talking about the cost of living, a lot of people I'm going to assume are going to want to know, hey, well, how much do I need to really actually make if I want to live in Boston? So if you're looking at, rough numbers, obviously this isn't financial advice or anything like that, but you should have a household income of, around $120,000. Of course, this figure can scale up or down depending on, the number of bedrooms you need. But, once again, that, $120,000 income is based on a 2-bedroom apartment with a monthly rent of about $3,000. And, when you factor in having kids or potentially pets, or, you have a spouse or a partner or any number of different situations that you have, it's where you want to have a bit of a buffer. And understanding too, that because we are one of the oldest cities in the country, even though you're paying these high prices, your dollar isn't getting you as much or as nice as you might get in other areas. So if I haven't scared you off, here's the thing. I want to know, what is drawing you here? Is the cost of living a concern? Comment down below. Let's have some discussion around it, because that's why I love making these videos. Okay, so as promised, a way to help with some of those cost of living expenses, because you have things like home maintenance, and we talked about the utility costs being higher than average and stuff like that. We have a program here in Massachusetts and in Boston called Mass Save, where what they'll do is they'll bring in all these different vendors, they'll do an evaluation of your home, and they will give you all these amazing deals on things like windows, insulation, siding, all these different things that are going to make your home more energy efficient and more green. And because you're doing it, they're going to give you huge rebates and discounts, and in some instances offer financing for it that has like 0% interest, because Massachusetts really wants to have everything be clean and green and help people. So what they've done is this whole initiative around mass saving and helping with, climate control and making sure that everything is going to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So this is one way that you can make a huge impact on some of these cost of living that you don't have in potentially other areas, because at the end of the day, let's be honest, you're moving here for a reason, and the cost of living can be a little scary. This is one huge way to help save some money. But if you are moving here, if you are relocating, and you want to talk more about how we can help, and you have questions that maybe weren't covered in this video, or you have a specific area that you want to get to, those are all things that we love to just help you with privately. But the only way we can help you is you have to reach out. You have to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us a message, and you can send an email. It's not going to matter when you do it. Days, nights, weekends, we got your back when moving to Boston and its suburbs. So until the next video, guys, have a great rest of the day. And honestly, keep watching those videos. Watch that next one on the playlist, and we'll see you a little bit later. Can't wait to hear from you.